Finally, I had 1,031 events of snoring. 1,031 events in just one night. There's this GQ article that hits hard with this headline: millions of men don't know they're suffering from sleep apnea. Consider this a wake-up call. In this video, I'll walk through the key points from that article, sharing my own personal sleep study results, and taking you step by step through the process of improving your own sleep health. The article opens with a powerful story about the author's struggle with sleep apnea. Let me share a bit of it with you. For most of my adult life, I've been intermittently jolted awake by vivid hallucinations. My apparitions visit randomly and take various forms, ranging from a friendly colleague to a Lovecraftian horror. I once shook my wife awake to introduce her to the team of contractors who had appeared at our bedside. "Babe, they're here to fix the floor tiles," I beamed. "We don't have tiled floors." In reality, my body was slowly torturing itself. A doctor later suggested that my hallucinations were the product of sleep deprivation brought on by a severe case of sleep apnea. It's a disorder that causes you to stop breathing throughout the night due either to an obstructed airway or faulty signals between your brain and your breathing muscles. Okay, the hallucinations sound a little bit extreme, but for me at least, I was experiencing symptoms such as being really tired after lunchtime, just feeling groggy in general, and even in the morning when I wake up, I just didn't feel like I got a good night's rest and that I had energy to really attack the day. All of these symptoms might feel familiar to you because it is said that over 25 to 30 million people suffer from sleep apnea in the United States alone. Even the author goes into detail beyond hallucinations in terms of how sleep apnea ravaged his life. The turning point came when his doctor laid it out for him plainly. If you don't get this treated, you're probably going to die early. So sleep apnea isn't just about snoring or feeling tired. It's a serious condition linked to a host of health problems, including heart disease, high blood pressure, stroke, and even Alzheimer's. So how does this relate to my own personal sleep study experience? Well, I really want to show you guys just to give you guys a sense of what you might learn from a potential sleep study. I had my sleep study done, and here's what they found. AHI, which I think stands for apnea hypnopnea index, is 70.5 events per hour. This essentially measures how often I stop or reduce breathing per hour of sleep. So 70.5 events per hour. Anything over 30 is considered severe sleep apnea, and I was at 70.5. This is very similar to respiratory disturbance index, which is also at 70.5 events per hour. Basically, any breathing disturbances indicating severe disruption, which is getting me away from my REM sleep. I also got an apnea index of 68.3 events per hour, which specifically counts the number of times I completely stop breathing each hour. So again, this is over once per minute. I also have a obstructive apnea index, which is at 63.9 events per hour. These are the times where my airway was physically blocked, which is very common in sleep apnea. I also have a central apnea index of 2.3 events per hour. These occur when the brain doesn't send the right signals to breathe. While less frequent, they were still present. Then I also had 2.1 events per hour of mixed apnea index, which is a mix of obstructive and central apnea events. I think it's also interesting to learn about my oxygen desaturation, which is the amount of oxygen in my blood. I have 69.3 events per hour. This shows how often my blood oxygen levels dropped significantly. Imagine how bad this was for my brain, that my blood oxygen was so low for so much of my life. Now it's like unfathomable to me that like if I had a good night's sleep, how well I would have done in university. Like, could you imagine? I probably could have like gone to like Harvard or something. My average saturation was at 92%. This is my average blood oxygen level during sleep. It's a bit below normal, but it's okay. Basically, I think your blood oxygen level should stay around 95, 96%. But 92% is not bad. Problem was actually the fluctuation. It said my lowest saturation was at 71%, which this is the lowest my oxygen level dropped during the night. And this is super concerning because my doctor told me that anything below 90% is very, very bad. Lastly, it talks about my time spent below 88%, which is 15% of the time. This means I spent a significant portion of the night with very dangerously low oxygen levels. Finally, I had 1,031 events of snoring, which is a common symptom, but it's very disruptive and a red flag for sleep. 1,031 events in just one night. And basically, the technician comments were that my sleep apnea was at the very extreme end of severe sleep apnea. Next steps were essentially involving getting a CPAP machine, choosing the right mask, and I in fact chose a nasal mask, which is less invasive. They just put it into your nose, and because of the positive pressure, you have to breathe in through your nose, and you can't actually breathe in through your mouth. In the beginning, it wasn't easy. It was super hard to put a mask on my face and fall asleep. There's a learning curve, and the process can be extremely frustrating. But then, when you notice the results, which is I feel less drowsy, I don't feel tired after my lunch meal, it's just dramatically different. I made a detailed video about how I use my CPAP machine and how I navigated this process, so I will link that video below. But overall, I have to say that getting sleep apnea treatment is not a straightforward journey. It takes determination, self-education, and you really have to push for the care that you need because your doctor is not going to push you to take that sleep study. After you do take the sleep study, you have to convince that you have a problem with your insurance so that they can cover your CPAP machine. And a tip from me, because I ended up not getting into Harvard, don't wait, get a sleep study and start your path to better sleep and health, and maybe you can do much, much better than I did.